Welcome to season 12 of the Parenting Aces podcast, a proud member of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and this week we are talking new tennis tech, specifically virtual reality, and a product called Sense Arena. We have with us Yannick Yoshizawa and Nick Monroe, both former college tennis players. Nick went on to have a very successful professional tennis career, is now coaching professional tennis player Jack Sock. Yannick is full-time with Sense Arena and is the VP of the tennis side of the company. And I am so excited for y'all to hear what this innovative company is bringing to the world of junior tennis development, college tennis, and professional tennis training. This is something so unique and so exciting, and I'm thrilled for y'all to get exposed to Sense Arena and the possibilities for helping your players be their best selves. So without further ado, I want to bring on Nick and Yannick. Enjoy. Nick Monroe, Yannick Yoshizawa, welcomes to the Parenting Aces podcast. I'm so excited to learn more about Sense Arena, what you guys are doing, and how you are using it to help junior players become their best selves. So welcome. Good morning. It's early here on the West Coast, so I'm still nursing my second cup of coffee. So
No, thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. I'm going to start with you, Yannick, because I want you to give us a little bit of the backstory of Sense Arena, why you created it and what it is. And then we're going to jump into how players can use it to improve their game.
Yeah. First of all, thanks, Lisa. Appreciate you having us, especially in the early morning of the West Coast. To give a little bit of background, a full background, the company itself was founded in Prague, Czech Republic, by actual former basketball player himself. His name is Bob Tativa. And back then, after his career in basketball, he got exposed to virtual reality in a completely different realm of marketing. But with his background in athletics and then exposed to technology, it clicked for him that how that type of technology, virtual reality, all the way back in 2016, was so realistic and how it could help athletes already at that point. So in the end of 2017, Bob, as you may or not know, Czech Republic has a huge background in hockey, and as well as we'll come into tennis. But at that point, it's a huge hockey country, and as well his son was starting to play hockey as a 10-year-old, and his whole vision starting then was the ability for you to basically recreate all the different scenarios in the ice without having that body tear, but also for your brain that, as we all know, it goes apart from the physical, the technical aspect, the brain, the mental side of any sports. It's incredibly important. So by just having more repetitions, your brain being able to understand different scenarios, that was basically the whole story on how he started. All the way, the company was founded in 2017, started in 2018, completely on the B2B aspect of just going to training centers, teams. And as we know, the whole world took a turn in 2020 with COVID happening. And which then, with the technology evolving, then MetaQuest, Facebook was able to create a much more accessible product, hardware, for it be able to be accessible to any parent, junior, and that's the platform that we use. So it started in 2020. It became basically available to anyone in their home. And as you know, back then you couldn't go to a training center to train. So then kids were just training at home. So fast forward now to end of 2021, where the hockey was pretty self-sustainable. We have 5 NHL teams that use it, about 20 D1 schools, and about 100 pro players who use it, apart from currently over 3,000, just hockey junior players that are using for. So as with the success, it was like, okay, we can go into other sports. And that's, as we know, Czech Republic has a huge history in tennis as well. And then from a technical side, it was very similar because in hockey, you have the stick that you need to use to handle the puck. And then in tennis, you need to use a racket. So you never had contact with your hand. So therefore, tennis was decided to come as the second sport, which, we have Martina Navratilova from Czech Republic as well, who was very interested and helped us develop everything. And then we have here Nick Monroe, and we have other 6 advisors who also help us develop all the drills, all the physics, and all basically the proposition of this tool to help of course, any aspiring players that we talk about it, anyone who wants to get better, Sensorina basically gives that ability for you to work on the mental, your brain, and so on. But first and foremost, we all know that our brain is being huge developing during those ages, from 10 to 17-year old. Therefore, we just believe that's the target audience who can basically develop the most and take the most advantage of Sensorina. So sorry for the long spiel here, but we just launched November 2nd. And the beautiful thing about Sensorina, and as Nick knows as well, it has also just within these 4 months has changed so much, it has improved everything about it, and we continue to do so. And I think that's the ability of the virtual world. And then at the end of the day, to make sure parents are listening to this, our end goal, it's not to have kids to spend more and more time in VR. It's actually to just complement their training with this, because we believe on how your brain is so important. But at the end of the day, the goal is to help players, just to perform better, win more matches, get better rankings, which at the end of the day, that's getting back on the court. Right. So we're not replacing on-court training, but we're complementing with a more efficient way to train.
I love that. Nick, from the coach's perspective, one of the things that comes up pretty regularly every time a new tech product comes to market is that coaches are concerned it's going to take money out of their pockets. If players can do it on their own, then that means they're spending less time on the court with the coach, which means the parents are paying less money to the coach. And, we don't want that to happen. We want coaches to feel like they can use technology such as Sensorina as a complement to what they're offering on court, not as a replacement for what they're offering on court. So can you talk a little bit about this from the coaching side? And then I want you to talk about it from the player side, because certainly you have held all those roles, as has Yannick. And reassure the junior coaches out there that we're not looking to replace them. We're looking to give them more tools to be able to do their job more effectively.
Yeah, Lisa, I think you said it right. I mean, look, being a pro player on the tour for 18 years, retiring last year at the US Open, I was on tour for a very long time. And as a player, I mean, you're always looking for an edge, right? I mean, the line is so thin, and as juniors and the professional level to become higher ranked, to become a better player. And so you should always be looking for an edge as a player. And then from the coaching perspective, you should want your player to be able to find that edge, obviously helping them on court with different drills to improve their game. But then also now with the Sensorina, you're able to, virtually see things, you're able to do different drills. And whether it's in the warm up for 15 minutes before you actually get on court, whether it's after, I mean, visualization is so key in tennis and in any sport. Mentally, and the night before, and even in the morning, thinking about, okay, how am I going to win points tomorrow in my match? How am I going to win points? And, when you wake up in the morning, how am I going to win points to improve and get better and win more matches? Right. So again, with Sensorina, when you're able to put it on, when you're able to hold the racket and do specific drills, that gives you more of a feeling of, okay, when I see these fast volleys, I'm ready for those. And the movement that you're able to do with the racket in hand, the visualization that you're able to see from the court and the ball coming at you through Sensorina is just so helpful. And, it's another way to, again, as a player and as a coach, find that extra edge that you need to be successful. So, I don't think as a coach they should look at it as, oh wow, this could take money out of my pocket. This is just another tool to help the player become a better player.
Right, right. And just to kind of build on what you're saying, Nick, so that our listeners understand what we're talking about here, Sense Arena it's a virtual reality tech that requires the virtual reality glasses, and you guys are partnered with Meta or working with Meta to use their hardware, right, Yannick?
Yeah, so basically, just I think the simple way, the Meta store is like a app store, right? So
Okay.
they have just different application softwares. So once you have the Meta Quest 2, which is the headset, the hardware, what we do, we provide the software inside of the hardware, and then the only hardware that we Sense Arena provide, it's the racquet. And again, to provide the most realistic feeling from that aspect of visualization that Nick was talking about. We're not here to teach you how to best hit your top spin forehand, but we know that if you have that feeling of your racket in your hand, your brain is going to be able to associate even more with the real feeling that you have it. So therefore, we do what we call a haptic racket, which has a very similar balance and weight to a regular racket. And so, it doesn't look when you look at, but when you put the virtual reality, I would say it's similar to your actual head radical that you would have it at home. And then, of course, as a player, by having your racket in your hand, it then makes it even more real to them. And the haptic part comes when you actually make contact with the ball, the racket vibrates, which again, we're not here to replicate exactly the weight of the ball, but it sends a signal to your brain. So your brain recognizes that you're making contact.
Right. And again, just to clarify, we're not talking about hitting an actual tennis ball with an actual tennis racket. We're talking about a tool that replicates the feel of holding a racket in your hand. And then the tennis ball itself is a virtual tennis ball that you see when you wear the goggles. My only experience with virtual reality, my nephew has the goggles and brought them over one day, and we were playing a game where I had like a lightsaber looking thing that I had to whack stuff with, and I ended up whacking my dog, which my kids got on video. But I will say, just from for somebody that didn't grow up with this kind of technology, it took me a few minutes to figure out how to maneuver and all, but once I got the feel of it, it became very natural. And I'm guessing that kids growing up in this time, who have had this technology already for several years now, this is just another piece of software that they can utilize to help in a very specific area of their lives, being their tennis. I just think it's so cool. And I love anything that is helping kids become better at their passion, whatever that is. One cool thing that, Nick, I would love for you to speak to is using this technology during injury recovery, because I feel like, one of the questions I get quite often is, my kid's out with a hurt fill in the blank, and it's out for several weeks. How do we make sure their tennis doesn't spiral downward during that period of time? What can they do to maintain their fitness level, their hand-eye coordination, et cetera, et cetera? So Nick, I'd love to hear your thoughts as a coach and as a player on how this technology could help kind of bridge that gap during recovery stages.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, I think obviously depending on the injury and whatever it might be, but anything in tennis is reps, or anything in any sport is reps. So when you're able to put the goggles on, still hold the racket in your hand, and there's so many different drills that you can do through this VR. You can do reflex volleys, you can do return of serves, you can see different surfaces, clay, grass, which visually is very cool to feel like you're actually on the court, you're hitting the ball, you're having to move your hands for reflexes. So, again, with the Sense Arena, you can make the turns and the movements for the forehand, the backhand, things like that. But then also, if you're doing reflex volleys, maybe you just work on putting your hands out in front and just being quick with your hands. So, again, if you're injured, depending on what it is, there's so many different drills that you can do to still, again, have that feeling of the racket in the hand, be able to see a ball coming at you, be able to have the reflexes, be able to have the shot selection, even, just hitting down the middle. There's drills where you're just down the middle with the player through the set. So again, just the visualization process is just so key for any sport. And Sensorina has just made it significantly important and even better for kids and pro players and adults to become better players.
Yannick, can you speak to the amount of space that is necessary to utilize Sensorina to its fullest capabilities? I'm talking physical space, because I can just see the parents sitting here going, oh my gosh, my vase on my coffee table is going to be shattered if my kid's using this. But can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, so of course, the whole also aspect of virtual reality and the ability now to use VR is, for us, it was to have the ability for people to do it at basically anywhere, right? Including their homes more than anything. So there is all the drills, they have different capabilities according to your space. So if you have been in VR, you always have to set out your boundaries to see how much space you have, first of all. So therefore, if you get out of this space, basically the software shuts down, and then you can actually see where you are. So again, that basically automatically you can set up however much space you have it. So then when you go into Sensorina, basically there are different settings that you can set up, that basically there are drills that are totally vision, for you just to sit. You can literally sit on a chair and just like follow the ball and basically work on your ball anticipation, recognition, and so on. That is just basically visual. And then there's other drills that actually you can set up if you're in an indoor court, that you can actually set up a big area, to either return a serve or to actually move it around and hit a running outside forehand. So again, what we usually recommend is to have at least a minimum of 12 by 12 square feet. But again, you can do literally sitting down some of these drills, and then you can do it as big as you can, depending on the space that you have it. So I would say to the parents, it's always good to prevent that you're not too close to any glass or TV, but because it also feels very, very immersive. And that's the beauty of it, is that like you lose completely sense of space because it feels so realistic, right? And then that's, you're hearing the crowd noise and you're hearing all these different things. As you said, Lisa, you hear your dog, because you just feel like you actually, it's not only the visualization, but it's your feelings and emotions that it brings it up to this, right? And then as Nick said, and I think I would like to touch on this power of visualization. I was speaking to a parent actually of a 13-year-old today, and we were talking about visualization, and he said, he's tried to implement that with his son with just different techniques and different ways to do it. But his son always gets bored. He's like, it's not engaging, like the kids nowadays, there's no way they're gonna sit there, close their eyes for 10 minutes, which is still extremely important. But if you have the ability to engage and provide this now in a much more enhanced visual that this generation is used to it nowadays, that's their benchmark, then you can completely, turn the key and say, hey, you can visualize you hitting that best forehand that you want to hit it tomorrow through this. And their brain basically is able to recognize much faster.
So cool. Nick, can you, going back, talk a little bit about the drills that are included in the tennis software and how you're using those to help Jack Sock improve his game, and then maybe, talk a little bit about what you feel like the crossover is to junior tennis development.
Yeah, I mean, as Yannick said, look, there's so many different drills. I mean, what I like is the ability in the beginning just to be hitting the ball down the middle. You can just work on kind of your footwork. If you have a 12 by 12 space, even if it's smaller, you can still have a little space to make your movements and your turns for your forehands and your backhands. One drill that I really love are the reflex volleys. Obviously, playing doubles for the last 9 years on tour and being top 30 in the world, that's something that you have to really work on all the time as a doubles player. Are your fast hands, right? You can never think that your hands are too fast, right? Even if you're Roger Federer or Rafa Nadal, there's always something to work on. So for me, the reflex volleys are always so key, and I think also a lot of juniors don't work on volleys enough their practices. So there's through the volley drills, that helps as well. Also, I think a lot of juniors don't work on the return of serve enough. So being able to hit more returns of serves, I think is key, which you can do through Sensorina. And then again, I can't say enough, just ability of repetition and being able to hold the racket in the hand, being able to just swing and have a feeling and seeing a ball go over a net, and just that visualization of seeing it go over the net, X amount of times. And, there's certain drills you can do. Okay, how many are you going to make out of 10 on the reflex volley? So did I make 7 out of 10? How many returns of serves did I make? So you can make it fun and competitive within yourself to say, okay, today I did 7 out of 10. Tomorrow I want to try to do 8 out of 10. And you want to keep getting better each day. So just that competition you can create within yourself. And again, just the reps is key.
Is there the ability, is there a metaverse around this so that you can use the VR and actually play against another human in another location? Or is that something that's coming?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So basically, I think one thing that we wanted to very focus on in the early stages of this platform, it was for people to understand that this is a training tool more than a game. There are different games out there in tennis that you can, quote unquote, like, let's say, play against another person. Not you can see the other person, but you can play against a computer or whatnot. But we really wanted to make this as a understanding for players, parents, coaches, that this was a way for them to train. So that's why we included these drills for basically for you to be able to have a task in mind, which what just Nick said, and I'll complement and I'll jump into your question more specific, is that a lot of players, and I can tell myself included, a lot of times I would just jump on a court and hit balls, sometimes just mindlessly, not thinking about anything. And this is something that even like video games has been proven that it helps on concentration and focus because you're given a task, right? And that's what we try to do in some of these drills, is that even what Nick was talking about, just hitting down the middle, but you have the task that you're trying to hit as many balls back and forth, right? So then you're just increasing your focus. Now, fast forward into what you actually ask about, the ability to play against one another. This is something that we go back and forth, that we do have the ability, to do that one day. It's not, to be completely honest, it's not in our roadmap right now, because we feel that it would be a change of proposition of the product at this point. And then 2, we feel also like you can imagine like playing an actual match with, you need much more space, right? But what we do have, it's now we're actually releasing in the next month, it's what we call competition. So you're actually going to have the ability to compete with friends and anywhere around the world on the same drills. So we have different sets of drills. You do it and you can compare your score. You can see how well you do in each. Like you are a better focus player, you have better reflexes, you anticipate your return of serve. So then it's also the education aspect of like understanding that it's not about having this amazing forehand, but if you can actually anticipate 1 second faster than the other player, actually your forehand being amazing, it's a consequence of being able to anticipate or react or focus better.
I was just thinking in terms, especially of doubles, since we've got the double specialist with us, that it would be so cool, for juniors to be able to train with their doubles partner. I mean, in junior tennis, sometimes you don't have a doubles partner until the night before the tournament. So how cool would it be to be able to hop on Sensorina together and, get ready for your match the next day? I don't know. I just, my brain's kind of going in all directions with this, because virtual reality just to me is so fascinating, and we're seeing so many different use cases for it across so many different industries right now. And, in terms of junior tennis, which is, my arena, I think there's so many possibilities for ways to reduce cost to parents, first of all, because especially for kids that live in cold climates where they're having to train and play indoors for a good part of the year, and that gets very, very costly. To be able to have Sense Arena at home, or in a school gym, or somewhere where you're not paying a fortune to use the space. What a great way to supplement their training and keep them match tough and match ready during a time of year where parents are shelling out a ton of money for court time. The same with like college kids. I'm thinking, college players that they're having to balance the academics and the tennis training. And I know you guys are working with a lot of college teams. I just think, what a savings for the overall university and athletic department to be able to have this virtual reality training tool and engage all the players on the team without having, to have coaches on the court with the players or have additional courts or whatever. So I just think there's so many cool things that I'm sure are in the works and on your roadmap for the future. But since both of you did play college tennis, can you talk a little bit about, if this had been available to you when you were in college and trying to get that academics athletics balance? Can you kind of think about how you might have used this and how it might have helped you manage your time better?
Nick, let me start before, because Nick has a much more accomplished career in college. Therefore, let me start before he talks a bit. So maybe my use case might be more common to players. Nick, I'm sure you'll be able to compliment in many ways. But I'll just be very quick. And this is, I think, one of the reasons when started working in Sense Arena. First of all, I just saw like, oh my gosh, I could totally see me using this. And I'll just give a very specific case. My backhand wasn't the greatest, and I used to serve in volley a lot. And by the contracts, I used to very much dislike when people would come to the net to my backhand, right? And I think a lot of times it wasn't really regarding my technique or my footwork or whatnot, but it was just that when someone would come, my mind was just like, what do I do? I'm gonna miss, and guess what, right? You have a team of 10 players usually. You have 1-2 coaches there. They're not going to be able to put a player just hitting balls to your backhand over and over and over again, right? And I think that's the part where really I felt as like it's the self-confidence that this can give to a player just by seeing it more. You start believing in yourself more. Therefore, you're going to be able to execute better when you're actually on court, right? And that's like the ability of the customization that I feel the Sense Arena can provide now, of like even having a righty player or a lefty player, coming to my backhand, and then I just can see it and I actually can do it and do a passing shot. It's just the power, again, going back to the power of visualization, right? It's just that your self-belief and your self-confidence just increases tremendously. So when you're actually physically on court, you're like, I've done this 100 times now where I couldn't before, So I would just say that. So I would say I lost a lot of matches just because of this mental breakdown, which helped me serve in volley better, but definitely would have helped me.
Yeah, Yannick, I think that's case in point. I mean, the self-confidence of being able to see enough balls going over the net, whether it's a serve, whether it's a return a serve, whether it's a volley. I think in college and obviously in the juniors and then in pros, this is so great for, your first 15 minutes and putting it into your routine of, okay, we're going to use Sense Arena. We're going to hit some balls down the middle. We're going to hit some reflex volleys. So again, just adding it to the routine, seeing enough balls go over the net, being competitive with yourself. how many are you going to get out of 10 of whatever it might be, forehand cross court, backhand cross court. So using it in college would have been beneficial, I think, before practices, even after practice. But then also we had a lot of rotations where we had 4 or 5 guys on the court. And so, it'd be like, all right, one guy's hitting 6 balls, the other guy's kind of waiting for him. Or even if it's 20 balls, the other guy's kind of waiting. So the other guy could be doing sense arena while another one's hitting. And then while, that person's hitting, then you just keep rotating. So I think the rotations of being able to mix in the sense arena, and that also is great for the juniors, the pros, and college. So again, it just creates that self-confidence because you're able to visually see the ball go over the net. And as Yannick said, it definitely would have improved his backhand passing shot more if he had it in college.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I'm just, as y'all are talking, I'm thinking about, days where there's inclement weather and you can't be out on the court. So as a junior coach or a college coach, having Sense Arena available for the players to, continue to train, even when the weather isn't being so favorable, even during rain delays at tournaments. I mean, I just, again, my wheels are turning about the different ways that this could be utilized by junior players, by college players, to help them, maintain all of their skills, even when court time or weather or finances don't allow for a traditional training opportunity.
Yeah. And I think, obviously one really cool thing about Sense Arena is being able to increase the wind in Sense Arena. So, when you'll see a ball coming at you and moving, and a lot of junior players aren't confident in the wind, right? So if you're able to put on Sense Arena, put on the VR, see the wind moving the ball, be able to hit the ball within this virtual reality, then when it comes to actually doing it on court, you're going to feel more comfortable, right? And I think that's another a great tool that they've been able to implement with this wind pattern that I think can help junior players.
And adult players. I will just say, I played a league match yesterday, and I swear the ball was doing this in the air every shot over the net. My partner and I looked at each other and were like, we hate this. It's so miserable. And I think that is such a cool feature, is that the wind feature. And then you have a sun feature too, right, Yannick?
Yeah, correct. We have shades, if you're playing in the morning, in the afternoon, and as well playing at night, right? A lot of people don't like playing at night. So again, it's all about having that mental aspect of just feeling a little bit more comfortable, right? And I would just like to give one example here outside actually of tennis, but we had a kid who was very scared of heights. And I don't know if there is actually a software in virtual reality that basically they put you in 2 buildings and a plank between the 2 buildings, and you need to walk in the plank, right? And then basically we feel the immersive part of it. And then this kid, who I believe it was 11, he just started doing it a little bit every day, so he overcame that fear that he had. And then again, it just goes back and this is very relatable, just of what Nick was talking about the wind. It's just that it's a windy day, you already start thinking, oh my gosh, it's gonna be awful. I'm gonna break 3 rackets, and it is what it is, right? So you just go in, so maybe taking a little bit of that frustration out in Sense Arena, or just feeling a little bit more comfortable than when you're on court, that might save 2 out of those 3 rackets for the parents as well.
I love that. Yeah, that's a huge cost savings from the parent side, as the mom of somebody who went through a lot of tennis rackets. I think that's such a cool feature. I didn't even think about that, but working through frustrations and anger using the virtual reality tool so that you can learn how you react to certain situations, and then start to learn how to better manage your reactions, so that when it comes time to play the actual match, maybe you don't have that outburst. Maybe you don't get that penalty point or that suspension point from the roving umpire. And, you become somebody who is more mentally tough. And that, that's a buzzword, I guess, in junior tennis, especially. But how cool to be able to do that virtually and train the brain and train the body to react in a more acceptable manner.
Yeah, and let me just add this, especially from the very beginning, what you just said, Lisa, on the podcast, where we want to make sure that coaches don't feel that we're taking clients from them, right? I do believe it's actually the opposite, right? It's providing them a tool that now they can increase their knowledge to provide it to these junior players of like how to cope in different ways. So I think actually just it gives them another tool, which even maybe, it's actually helps them increase how much they get in their pocket. But at the end of the day, like I think it's just a way for even parents or coaches to have also the juniors be part of their training, right? Because I think that's one of the toughest things that when you talk to juniors, when we do talk to them, like when they talk about mental training, a lot of them, they think it like, oh my gosh, here I go, watch another video, which is super important, or do visualization or do all these different practice. But if you can also transform the way they train and the way they see this type of training, right, it also will help overall, I believe, the game in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, specifically working with Jack Sock, can you kind of dive a little bit more into day to day how you're implementing using Sensorina to help him do better when he's out there playing these tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for any player, whether it's juniors, professional, it's just how do you implement it into your routines? Every player has their specific 40-minute warm up before a practice, or and then 30-minute warm up before a match. And so for us, it's a lot about just making sure that, look, we'll put it on for a little bit, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, get the eyes moving, right? I think it helps getting his eyes moving, with some of the reflex volleys, some of this, the ball sitting down the middle, and then being able to then say, okay, now we can jump on the court and get going. So a lot of it's more about kind of in the beginning of practice, just wanting for him to kind of get his eyes moving, get the body moving. And, and then obviously then we get on court and we get some extra reps in. So again, it's just how, implementing it into your routine. It doesn't need to be for 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it might be. Obviously, if the weather's not great and you want to do a little bit more, then that's what you do. But for us, it's more about, okay, we hit it for 10, 15 minutes, and then let's get on the court and then work there. So again, it just helps getting your eyes moving, your body moving, and the feeling of having the racket in the hand as well is just such a great feature.
Yeah, I want to expand on that, getting the eyes moving thing, because I don't think a lot of people incorporate that in their warm up, and it's not really something we've touched on much at Parenting Aces. I have had, actually, I've done a couple podcasts on eye training, visual training, and the importance of it, but specifically understanding what needs to happen right before a player gets on the court. I'm not sure we really understand that piece of things. So can you kind of dig a little deeper into how Sensorina does that eye movement training?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're on the court, obviously, once you hit the professional level, the ball's coming so fast. So you need to be ready from the very first ball. You need to be ready to go. And so through Sensorina, obviously, when the ball's coming at you, let's say if it's with the reflex volley drill, the ball is literally right on top of you so quickly, and so you have to be engaged. And a lot of players in warm-ups, a lot of junior players professional players will have their coach kind of throw the ball at them. Not through Sensorina, I'm just saying in warm-up, they'll have their coach throw a ball off a wall, kind of like a hockey deal, throw it off the wall, try to catch it with your hand. So now if you do it with Sensorina, then you're able to see this ball coming at you. You're able to just kind of be quick with your eyes to hit the volley, be quick with your eyes to hit a return a serve. And so anything, again, just visualization. So anything just coming at you and doing something for 10 minutes, 15 minutes before stepping on the court is huge.
That's so cool. I love that. Yannick, can you touch on the specifics of how someone purchases Sensorina? Tell us your website, the cost of the software, the cost of the hardware needed, and any other particulars that we need to know.
Yeah. So our website is very simple. It's tennis.sensorina.com. As you may know, we already also have hockey. So if you do have the kid that plays tennis and other hockey, there you go. So one-stop shop. For us, as far as we're a subscription company, because what we just said in the beginning, the platform, what it is today, it's going to continue to evolve. So we want to make sure that we are continuously improving the platform for juniors, for parents, for coaches. We start actually at $19 a month. We have two different plans, basically depending on the features that you want. And we have monthly as well as annual different subscriptions. So it starts at 19 bucks, and if you want to pay monthly, it's 39 bucks. So again, it just depends of your needs and wants at that specific time. And you can do everything through the computer. You just sign up. It takes 5 minutes, and there's much more information within the website as well that you can have it. And then Lisa, hopefully whenever you share this, we have a support and my email, my contact. If there are any other questions, we're always happy to answer.
And we'll have all those links in the show notes on parentingaces.com. One thing that I thought was really smart that you guys did, one of many things, but one that jumped out at me was the fact that you can actually order the Meta goggles through a link on your website. The haptic racquet, does that come with the purchase of the software, or do you purchase that separately as well?
Yeah, so the MetaQuest, we have a link there for anyone to buy it if you don't have it yet. But also you can just buy it in any major electronic store. The haptic racket, when we have the annual pro subscription plan, which comes with it, the other plans you need to buy separately, which again, if you go through our store, it gives you the option to choose the size of the racket and whatnot when you're going through that process.
Yeah, super cool. Super cool. Well, guys, I really appreciate you coming on and diving into Sensorina, sharing the features and the applications that are appropriate for junior players, college players, junior coaches, college coaches. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this company grows and the addition of features as you get more experience in developing this. It's the future. I mean, it really is. And virtual reality is here to stay. AI is here to stay. And so we all just need to embrace it and take advantage of how it can make our lives easier and better and more productive. And again, thank you so much for taking time. Nick, I know you were on coach duty this week, and so I'll let you get back to it. But guys, I hope you'll come back as more features are added and keep sharing with the Parenting Aces community.
Yeah, Lisa, thanks so much for having us. Look, Sensorina, like as you said, it's here to stay. It's as a player, you're always looking for that edge, and this is the edge that will help juniors, adults, professional players get that extra win. So we're happy to share the knowledge, and hopefully people will start taking a look.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And then also just to compliment and say thanks to you, because I think what you're doing there, just by trying to bring more knowledge and different education to parents, it's definitely a big aspect of tennis. Parents, the more parents know, the more their kids are gonna know as well. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. And to my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you next time on Parenting Aces.